Okay, we are rolling. We are rolling, brother. It's been a long time, ladies and gentlemen, but Champions of Champions Boxing Talk is here once again to talk to you about this crazy world we live in. Right, well, big announcement, wasn't there? Mike Tyson announces in September he will fight another legend, Roy Jones Jr. Should Mike Tyson be fighting? Hell no. Should Roy Jones Jr. be fighting? Hell no. Do I want to see this? You betcha. Listen, right? Mike Tyson. People say this, people say that, people say the other about him. But you tell me a heavyweight, not since the days of Muhammad Ali, that puts on an event like a Mike Tyson event. I know people, these Pacquiao and Mayweather are from different weight classes, right? But strictly heavyweights. You tell me a heavyweight since the days of Muhammad Ali that has put on a better spectacle and put more anticipation into an event than Mike Tyson. Whether it's going to be him or you, everybody wanted to watch it. And you know something? They still do. Right? I could feel it. People, you see, legends don't get smaller. They don't. Because as generations go on, more boxing fans read about you. Right? You become synonymous. And nobody does an event like Mike Tyson and the recent version of Roy Jones we've got. Nobody walks a tightrope, like Roy Jones Jr. We've seen him be dominant. We've seen his reflexes in the past be, tremendous. He didn't need a defense. He could just use them reflexes to avoid shots, and he could hit you. And his hand speed would be way too fast for your reflexes. Way too fast. And before you know it, you'd be on the floor. But we know now that this Roy Jones is more vulnerable. He's on a tightrope. Doesn't that make this the ultimate event? Nobody does an event like Mike Tyson, and nobody walks the tightrope like Roy Jones. Right? Is the selection right for these two guys? Possibly. Because it's not like Mike Tyson will be fighting Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, etc. Because it wouldn't be a fair fight if a guy Tyson's age was fighting people 20 plus years younger than him and in their primes. Right? Roy Jones Jr. is not fighting Deontay Wilder, who is in his prime. So is it a little fair that he fights Tyson a little bit more? Providing Roy Jones doesn't get physically involved and boxes Mike Tyson. If he can't find some reflexes, then he could be in trouble. Because the last thing in a boxer's armour to go is that killer punch. And we know Mike Tyson had that killer punch. Also, the reflexes dimmed to Roy Jones, right? And all that kind of thing. He was more vulnerable when he got hit to the chin. That's where the defeats came from, right? But we'd seen him drop Joe Calzaghe, didn't we? Again, with Roy Jones, some of the hand speed did remain. Some of the power did remain. So is it as simple as this? It's an 8-round exhibition fight between two legends. Is it Mike Tyson typically has to get it done in 4 rounds, or Roy Jones will start to, outbox him, outsmart him? Or Mike Tyson shows a different animal, Roy Jones was, it's fascinating. Might Roy Jones be the aggressor? We don't know. I certainly hope that Mike Tyson comes to the ring to fight like the old Mike Tyson. I know he can't deliver it, but with the intentions of fight like Mike Tyson. And I hope Roy Jones comes to the ring with the intentions of fight like Roy Jones. But the thing is, Roy Jones is going to have to be cautious. He's going to have to be really cautious, because I bet you could get a prime what was his name? The guy that Roy Jones beat for the world title, the heavyweight title of the world, right? John Ruiz, that's it, right? I bet John Ruiz in his prime can't punch as hard in his prime as this Mike Tyson now. Because as I've said, the punches never leave. That Roy Jones would beat Mike Tyson of today. I'm not saying any different because that John Ruiz was fresher. Sorry. He was fresher, so he would beat Mike Tyson. He was in his prime, right? But here's the thing. Can Roy Jones, can he discourage Mike Tyson? Because although Mike Tyson had some bad wins, right? He quit, he was beaten on the stool in his last fight against Kevin McBride, right? How many shots did it take Lennox Lewis to stop Mike Tyson? I mean, Mike Tyson has a very good chin. Can Roy Jones discourage him? Maybe he can. Maybe the hand speed, maybe if Tyson's head movement is not as functional as it even was when he was 38, maybe Roy can see something there. Again, it's two of the old guard fighting each other, so it's a fairer fight than if we got Tyson Fury v Mike Tyson. Anthony Joshua v Mike Tyson. I mean, it wouldn't happen in a million years. I'm not going to convince myself of anything different. But let's face it, if Mike Tyson today caught Anthony Joshua with the right shot, Joshua would be knocked out. Wouldn't happen. I know it wouldn't happen because, again, Joshua's in his prime. But what I'm saying is, once again, that power is the last things to go. And not only is Mike Tyson's character the legend of the man, his persona, right? Not only does he sell the event, but that knockout power, people remember. They want to see at least a glimmer of it again. It's hard to understand, isn't it, that Mike Tyson is the star of the show, but Roy Jones, pound for pound, in the all-time history books, is the greater fighter. But you see, boxing is entertainment, right? That's why you will never, ever again have a fighter that fights with the style of Floyd Mayweather, could be as good as him with it, be that big again. You know why? Because it's not entertainment. Floyd Mayweather very cleverly realised, right, I can't be the biggest name in the sport fighting like this, so I have to create a WWE persona. And he did it. With his 24/7, his Money May character, Pretty Boy, all of this stuff. Because after a certain stage, Floyd Mayweather was really not offensive at all. And it's easy for me and for you listening to say, oh, that was a beautiful counterpunch. Oh, look how he avoided that punch. He dominated 12 rounds. Or he cleverly negotiated and nicked 12 rounds. That means a lot to me and you, doesn't to the casuals. It doesn't. But Floyd brought the casuals in by creating this reality TV star that he brought into boxing because he knew, I don't fight like a Mike Tyson. I have to bring the crowds in another way, right? The next generation will be more interested in a fighter that is more Pacquiao than Mayweather because of the styles. Never mind who's the best. The styles, because entertainment matters. Floyd found the entertainment factor in another way because he needed to. Now, Mike Tyson has both, doesn't he? Again, he won't go down pound for pound as great a fighter as Floyd, but he has this Iron Mike persona. Floyd developed a lot of his, but I think Mike Tyson, a lot of that is honest and natural, to be honest with you. But the public lapped it up. He was still a bigger star than Lennox Lewis, even though, again, Lennox Lewis was a better fighter, I believe, right? But Roy Jones is a greater fighter, but still, Mike Tyson is the bigger draw here, right? It's the glamour of the puncher, the glamour of Mr. Vulnerable, the glamour of Mr. Entertainment, the glamour of controversy via man that you know could be a mile ahead at one stage, and he could be asleep or hanging on for dear life the next. That is very attractive to casual fans. Let me put it this way: I'm more positive about this than I was at Conor McGregor and Mayweather. Right? I think the public is going to like this. Right? Simply put, it's Mike Tyson for the general public, and it's Roy Jones for the purists. Right? People are going to tune in. Who wins this? We don't know. I will say this. Mike Tyson has not been... Roy Jones, at least a few years ago, did have some fights. Mike Tyson hasn't had any for a long time. Might the fact that Mike Tyson in any kind of competition be a lot more rusty, give Roy an edge. But still, you're never safe with Mike Tyson around. If it's not your chin that goes, it could be your ear that goes. No, I'm joking there. But still, these guys shouldn't be in the ring. Maybe they should be against their own age group, but, whether they should be in the ring or not, they're spectacles and we're going to watch them. Anyway, I bet you guys have not missed me. I bet you're glad you don't hear my voice, but you're going to hear it more and more in the coming months. If only the modern boxing world had as much eagerness to fight each other as these two guys, we would have a much better sport. We'd have Terence Crawford v. Sean Porter right now. We'd have Keith Thurman v. Errol Spence a few years ago. But to be fair to Roy and to Mike, they did fight everybody to a certain extent. People might say the Lennox Lewis one took too long. I agree. But they got there. Can you tell me if we are ever going to see Errol Spence and Terence Crawford? Because Terence Crawford is already getting older. Right? But the spectacle of Mike Tyson will be back in September, I believe. And the great magician Roy Jones will join him. It will be a circus. It will be a spectacle. Whether we agree with it or not, it's gonna make numbers. And this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brothers.